Hi everyone. Today is the SLB's second workshop of the year, and in this workshop, we'll be going through how to make an account all the way to some of the ISA forms you'll need to be discussing. So today, I have with me our fair director, Mr. Steve Redeker, who will especially be helpful when we're talking about the ISA forms. So the first thing you're going to want to do is open up the GSTSCF webpage. And this is sort of where everything, all the resources you'll need for this workshop, all of that's going to be here for you. And in particular, when you start to create your account, we're going to start at that point. So we're going to go under students and register. And so there's some information you'll have to provide for that. And so for the sake of this workshop, I've made a dummy account here. So I'm going to go ahead and fill this in. You can follow along or just take a look. So this should be fairly straightforward. You're just filling in your information. You'll need an email account that you can access the email, and we can send emails to you. In particular, like school emails, you won't be able to receive confirmation emails and things like that. So that won't work. So as you see right here, once you create your account, you're gonna get an email account. You're gonna get an email to your email address. So you need to be sure that your email is open to that. So I'm just opening up my email here, and it's going to provide you a link. So I'm going to open that link here. And from here, you need to create a password. So now you have an official GSDSCF account, and this is sort of the portal where everything you're going to need is at. You can edit any of your information. There's the view tab, orders once you make a project. And the main part we're going to be focusing on now is the My Projects tab. So in the My Projects tab, this is where you're going to register your project, go through the SRC Safety Review Committee. You're going to go through all of that here. So we're going to hit on 2025 Science Fair. And over here, what we're going to do is we'll look at the SRC approval form here. And there's the project information, student information, and all of these. So we're going to go through all of these right now. So we've also made a dummy project for this workshop. So let's say senior division, and we're going to go in senior division, behavioral and social sciences here. This will be the 2025 science fair. And if you have a team project, you're going to have your partner also submit the digital project submission and use the exact same project title so that we know that you guys are working together on the project. So I'm going to put in an address 123 San Diego, California 92130 and 123. Obviously fill in your real stuff here, please. And so fill in a parent email here. And fill in the same school as earlier. Fill in a grade. And your teacher. So make sure before you start this process, your school is in the database and that your teacher has made an account with GSTSCF, because it will show your teacher here and your school here if only you have emailed to GSTSCF and GSTSCF has added your schools. After several years of this, most schools are on here, but there may be some that are not necessarily, and not all teachers are here. So make sure you talk with your teacher, have them set up their own GSTSCF account. And the next step will actually require you, after you fill out all of this, to send it to the teacher. So again, make sure your teacher is all good to go before you start this. So for this, we have our dummy project here, and this project, we're gonna title it Research for the GSTSCF. So I'm gonna go here, and that's our project title. So make a short, concise title that really describes what your project's gonna be all about. You're not completely bound to this title. Obviously, if you are thinking about modifying it a little bit as your project continues, that's perfectly fine. This is just something to go through the safety review committee. So now you need a problem statement. So I have a sample problem statement for this project and some general tips for the problem statement. The problem statement has to answer something along the lines of, what are you trying to solve? What are you researching? What are you prototyping if you're doing an engineering project? And here, for an example, we're saying, how does doing research for GSTSEF improve a middle school student's science knowledge? I also want to point out how specific this is. We could have just said a person's science knowledge, but we also want to be very specific to the group we're focused on. We're focused on middle school student science knowledge very specifically. So make sure you keep this as specific as possible. Answer, what are you trying to solve, research, or prototype. And I just want to once more mention that if you do have any questions on this, at the end, we'll be having a short Q&A. So feel free to ask any project related questions at that time. So next we have the hypothesis and engineering goal. So this is your prediction. And so it could be an if then statement, because something, or just a statement. So doing research for GSDSEF improves a student's science knowledge, or because students are doing research for the GSDSEF, middle school student science knowledge will improve. So again, it depends if you're doing a science or an engineering project. An engineering project would be looking at what kind of prototype you're making. Next, we have the materials. So this is, you want to list every single material that you need and the exact quantities that you want for each material. So I'm gonna go in here and copy and paste in the dummy account one. So the materials are list, which is often the easiest and quickest way to get about this. Like it would be like sort of bullet point or like dashes, like sort of what you see down below here. You could also do it in a paragraph, and make sure list size, you give like the sizes of each material in the list. Anybody should be able to replicate your project exactly without having to second guess what you mean in your project. And the same is said for the procedure in engineering design. This needs to be specific enough that if I was interested in your project, I could just follow your instructions, just one letter at a time, and I'd be able to generate the same thing you got, the same data you got, everything, got the same data analysis, everything like that. So here is the procedure. So again, it could be numbered paragraph, but it has to be detailed enough. So in this case, maybe what we would do in this procedure is create a pre and post science testing form, gather human participants in middle schools, get permission to use human participants. Now this get permissions is more tied into the forms you may have to be filling out, which again, Mr. Rodecker will be talking about soon. Administer science pretest form to all participants. Randomly select a group of 50% of the participants to research and participate in the GSTSCF, and the other half does not participate in GSTSCF. So now the one that does not participate in GSTSCF is the control group. And now you're going to administer the science post-test form to all students and compare results between the pre and post-test of science fair and control groups and make conclusions based off these results. And then now it's asking, where will your research be conducted? So now you have to always choose where your research is going to be conducted in the most place. So if you're doing it at home, at school, or a regulated research institution, for instance, if in this case, we'd probably be doing it at home, because here, although we're gathering participants from the school, it's very likely that we're not administering a physical test, but rather an online test. It may be important in that case to consider that an online form you're just creating at home and you're getting all that done at home. If you administer a physical test or you ask questions at your school, you'd say school. And the third option is a regulated research institution. Mr. Redecker will talk about the forms associated with that, but this is usually like a school or laboratory. If you're conducting your research somewhere else, you would need to fill out Form 1C for the regulated research institution. So now we're going to start talking about the ISEF forms here. And before I hand this over to Mr. Redecker, I'm going to talk about a couple of these acronyms here. So the ISEF stands for the International Science and Engineering Fair, and we have to work with the forms ISEF provides, since we are considered a part of ISEF. We're one of their associated fairs. And RRI is the Regulated Research Institution. Again, if it's a school or laboratory, somewhere else where you'll conduct your research. Now, if you're working at an RRI, you need an institutional review board. And what that basically means is they're going to talk and say that the student is allowed to be at a research facility and things like that. If you do not have an institutional review board at your regulated research institution, the SRC committee and the GSDSEF can stand as the institutional review board in place of that. So you'd have to email GSDSEF and make sure you talk about that with them. And the final acronym here is Institutional Animal Care and Use Committee. So in this case here, it's if you're working at an RRI with animals. However, the issue here is that the GSDSEF cannot stand in place for animals, and that the GSDSEF must receive a letter that the student is allowed to work with the animals at the RRI. So without anything else on the acronyms, now I'm gonna stop my screen share here. And again, Mr. Steve Rodecker, our fair director, who will be more qualified to talk about our ISA forms that you'll be needing to fill out.
Okay, thank you very much, Arnav. So what I'd like to do is to start at the beginning with the forms process here, okay, and keep this at a level so we're not going into great amounts of detail, but you get an idea of when ISA forms will be necessary for your project. Okay, so in order to find out where the forms are, then you would start, of course, at the homepage of the gsdsef.org. Okay, you can see what the URL is up in the left corner there. Okay, then you would migrate over to Students, How to Participate, click, and then go down. A lot of these things Arnav has just gone through here. Okay, making accounts, getting your teacher set up. Okay, and now we arrive at step 4 in the process, which is whether your project needs these additional forms. So let's take a look here then. The best way to do this, and by the way, we have many resources here. We have videos about each of the forms that you might be filling out, okay? We are available, of course, as well to give you information about any of the forms. So please feel free to contact us at any point to find out specific information about forms. But let me go through at kind of a not detailed level, but to show you what the forms are, how you get to them, and then if you have questions, to reach us, okay? So let's take a look at table 4B now, okay? In this particular section of how to participate. We are now at table 4B. Once again, we started at the website homepage. We've gone to Students. We've gone to How to Participate. And now comes table 4B. So you simply read the question over on the left-hand side of the project here, okay? And then if the answer to your question is yes, then you can see which forms are required. For example, let's take a look at if your project takes place at a regulated research institution. If that is true, and Arnav just mentioned what a regulated research institution was, it's basically a university lab, okay, or a lab of some sort, then you would be using ISA Form 1C. How do you get to ISA Form C? There, you can download them right from the table. You can see this is an active link. You can click on this, and I'll do this with another form here in a moment, okay? So basically, you just read down the left. If this is true about your project, then you would complete and submit the form going with it. If you are working with a scientist or an engineer in industry or in education or academia, okay, then you would fill out Form 2, the qualified scientist. Once again, this is a live link, and you simply download it, fill it out, and we're going to be taking a look at these again in a moment. If your project involves hazards of any sort, biological and non-biological, any kind of risk, okay, that is associated with it, then you complete ISA Form 3 risk assessment. Now I'm going to open this one up so that you can take a look at it, okay? So here it is. All right, there is the risk assessment form. It's 1 page long, as you can see. It's a fillable PDF, all right, so you can type on part of it. However, the signatures down below, okay, they need to be wet ink, okay, they need to sign. You would make a PDF out of this and attach it, okay? And Arnold will be showing you here momentarily where that happens. So let's go back. Okay, so we have gone down through risk assessment, form 3. If your project involves human participants, and Arnav's example that you just saw would involve human participants, you would then, and by the way, we have information right here about how to complete these forms. So before you come to us and ask questions, we would ask that you please read the accompanying information there about how to complete each of these forms, because we have put that in here for you as well for most of them. Okay, the ones that are a little more detailed. So we would download the human participants form. Most of them would require a sample informed consent statement. Okay, and if you have something where it requires a questionnaire, you can see over here to the side. If it is a survey or a questionnaire, in this case, a test, you would include a copy of that as well. So there's human participants, that's form 4. So everything is right here in the table, as you can see, okay? Next, if your project involves live vertebrate animals, please read how to complete the vertebrate animal form first. Then there are a couple of these. Form 5A is for vertebrate animal projects that might be done at school, home, or a field site. However, for a vertebrate animal project that is done at a regulated research institution, that would be Form 5B, and notice when it is completed. However, as Arnav was pointing out here earlier, okay, if you do an animal project, a vertebrate animal project at a regulated research institution, man, there's a lot of stuff that is required here, as you can see, okay? All of these forms would need to be filled out, a letter from the institution, etc. Okay. Once again, if you have questions about this, contact us and we can guide you through the process. Okay. Next, we have if your project involves biological hazards. Okay. First of all, you still have to complete risk assessment form 3. That's required for any kind of hazard, biological or non-biological. Okay. If there are potentially hazard biological agents, you're working with bacteria of any sort, it really doesn't matter, any sort pretty much, okay, you have to fill this one out. If it has to do with human invertebrate tissues, then there would be 6B. Okay, now let's say that you started a project last year and you would like to continue with your project this year. Adding to it, there are some rules about what is allowed as far as what you can add to your project and what represents a progression or a continuation of a previous project versus what is a new project. And you could look at the continuation projects form for that. Everything is here in one place for you to look at. It's easy, downloadable forms. Okay, you fill them out. And then at this point, okay, I'm going to turn it back over to Arnav. Okay. If you have forms, and we do, and he is going to show you now the next step if you have filled out your form and you want to attach it, and then how to continue with the SRC approval submission process.
And so for this project, this sample project that we made here, the main thing is research involving humans. So we need to upload the human participant form, consent statement, and a copy of the survey and questionnaire. So I didn't quite fill them out yet, but since this is just a simple project, but once you make a PDF, you download it, you just click on the PDF and you'll be able to upload each of these. So human participants, obviously each of these would be a different PDF, but for this case, you can just upload them. If you're not happy with the one you uploaded, you can remove it and then you can add it again. And you can, anytime you click on a checkbox, it'll open up the form upload page. And that's how you'll fill in all your forms. So now you'd be done with any forms once you've filled all of these out. Now you'll need the parent signature. You'll need to click through all the check boxes, and you'll need to fill in a signature for both the parent and as a student. And we're gonna say that. And now there are two options here. Save as a draft won't be an official submit. So if you're not completely sure if your project's ready for submission to the teacher, and you may want to change some of these, save as a draft. But once you press submit for a teacher signature, at that point it's final and it'll be going to your teacher, who will have to fill out some forms and sign some stuff on their part. And now the project has been created for you. All your information is all here. All your forms are openable if you want to look at them again. And now the next part of the process would be for your teacher. And that has gotten you through to through all the ISA forms and the creating an account, etc.
Now, when it comes to forms, okay, please notice, and I'm going to now have you take a look at these kind of goldenrod and green highlighted sentences here. Please notice what they say. If you are a middle school student and you and your teacher determine no forms are required, there are many cases where no ISA forms are required at all. Okay, if you're using water on plants or something like this, no forms are required. That's perfectly okay. In middle school, you can start immediately. You can start immediately. If you're a middle school student and you look through that list of forms, and yes, you do need a form of some sort, then you must get this approved before you start with experimentation. So for the project, for example, that Arnav and I designed here, okay, that would be a project. That was high school. So every project in high school must go through the SRC pre-approval process. So let me repeat that again, because this is critical to save you time. Middle school projects requiring no forms, start immediately. Middle school projects requiring ISA forms must go through SRC pre-approval before you start. So please get that. Now, let's go down to high school students, okay? High school students, every high school project, regardless of forms or not, must go through SRC pre-approval. Again, all high school projects must go through SRC pre-approval. Please get this done as quickly as possible, because you must get that approval before you start. Okay, so I just wanted to make that very clear about with forms. Some projects don't need forms in middle school. You can start immediately. If you're a high school student and you say, oh, I don't need any forms, doesn't matter. You must go through SRC, get pre-approval before you start. Okay. All right.